place where nobody can die. A town run by a single woman. A hidden Soviet village so secret, it's still locked off to outsiders. These places sound impossible, but they're absolutely real. I'm Mike with List 25, and today I'm diving into 25 of the most bizarre towns on Earth, starting with one that looks like it came straight out of the Wild West, but it's nowhere near America. 25. Laredo, UK. Laredo, one of the most authentic Wild West towns in existence, isn't in Texas or Arkansas, it's in England. This place looks straight out of the 1800s, complete with a saloon, blacksmith, undertaker's office, and even a ranger station. Every little detail, from the handmade signage to the way people dress, makes it feel like you've stepped into 1865. It's been a go-to filming spot for movies like Finding Neverland, Holmes and Watson, and Blood Moon, plus TV shows like Red Dwarf, and even a few music videos. But Laredo isn't the only town that feels frozen in time. In one Syrian village, people still speak the language of Zzyzx. 24. Maaloula, Syria. Maaloula is tucked into Syria's rugged mountains and is one of the last places on Earth where people still speak Aramaic, the language believed to have been spoken by Zzyzx. The language survived for centuries through a mix of daily life, religious rituals, and oral tradition. But sadly, in 2024, Islamist militants attacked the village and forced most of its Christian residents to flee. Today, less than 200 people remain. Meanwhile, another place has been frozen in time for a very different reason. An abandoned Olympic village built for the Nazis' biggest propaganda stunt. 23. The Olympic Village, Wustermark, Germany. The 1936 Olympic Village still stands where Hitler had it built, just outside Berlin. But time has turned it into something far less triumphant. Built to house 4,000 athletes, including the legendary Jesse Owens, the 130-acre complex had over 140 buildings. Dormitories, dining halls, a swimming pool, and even a state-of-the-art training facility. After the games, it became a military hospital, then Soviet Army barracks until 1992. Today, much of it is crumbling, with overgrown paths and abandoned buildings. But some parts, like the Jesse Owens house, have been restored, and there are plans to turn sections into residential housing. Now, while some towns are abandoned and left to crumble, others are kept off limits on purpose. 22. Zarechny, Russia. Zarechny looks like an ordinary Russian town. That is, if you ignore the fences, armed guards, and the fact that it doesn't appear on most maps. Built in the 50s as a secret nuclear research hub, it's still one of Russia's few remaining closed cities where access is strictly controlled. Rosatom, Russia's state-run nuclear agency, is the biggest employer, and outsiders are rarely allowed in. But life here isn't all bad. There are perks. Better pay, better living conditions, but yeah, also very strict rules. At the same time, there's a place that rewrote the rules, at least when it comes to naming towns. 21. Zzyzx, California, USA. Zzyzx might look like a typo, but it's a real place. And yes, that's actually how it's spelled. This tiny unincorporated community was founded in the 40s in the Mojave Desert by a self-proclaimed doctor who ran a questionable health spa. But its biggest claim to fame? That name. Since it was intentionally chosen to be the last word in the English language, it stands out on maps and directories. Zzyzx secured its place in history with a name. Najaf, Iraq did it by becoming home to the largest cemetery in the world. 20. Najaf, Iraq. Living next to a cemetery has its perks. Your neighbors are quiet, and there's no risk of them knocking on your door. But in Najaf, Iraq, the sheer size of the one next door might be a bit too much. Wadi al-Salam is twice the size of Central Park in New York and holds around 5 million graves. In fact, I think it's probably one of the oldest in the world too, since it's been in use for over 1,400 years. During the war against ISIS, burial rates skyrocketed, and with plots costing thousands, some families resorted to stealing graves, or even burying their loved ones beneath sidewalks just to secure a final resting place. Najaf was shaped by tradition, but our next town was designed to break free from it. 19. Auroville, Indiana. Most attempts at utopias don't end well, but Auroville, Indiana is still going strong. Founded in 1968 by Mira the Mother Alfasa, this experimental town was designed as a place where people from all over the world could live together, beyond politics, religion, and national borders. Today, over 3,000 residents from more than 50 countries call it home, embracing a lifestyle with no private property, little use of money, and no central government. Now, their way of life is definitely one way to rethink society. Another? Just trying to survive. 18. Araras, Brazil. In Araras, Brazil, stepping into the sun can be deadly. This small farming village has one of the highest rates of xeroderma pigmentosum in the world, a genetic disorder that makes skin hypersensitive to UV rays. While XP affects about 1 in a million globally, 22 people in Araras are living with the condition. And the reason is, in short, a genetic bottleneck. The village's founders carry this faulty gene, and generations of intermarriage in the following years have made this disorder particularly common. Araras may be stuck in the shadows, but our next town is stuck in an identity crisis that's lasted for centuries. 17. Busingen Hochrhein, Switzerland. Busingen Hochrhein might be a German town on paper, but being completely surrounded by Switzerland has left it with an identity crisis for centuries. The town has 2 postal codes, 2 phone codes, and even 2 currencies, the euro and the Swiss franc. Residents can work and own property in Switzerland without citizenship, and after 10 years, German citizens here get special status with Swiss-like rights. Even the town's football team, FC Busingen, plays in the Swiss League, the only German club to do so. The thing is, a town that's neither here nor there might be unusual, but so is putting an entire town inside one building. 16. Whittier, Alaska. Almost all 272 residents of Whittier, Alaska live in Begich Towers, a 14-story Cold War-era building. Originally built in 1956 as an army barracks, it now houses everything a town needs: a police station, post office, store, church, and even a health center, all under one roof. With 22-hour summer days and winters buried under 6 meters or 250 inches of snow, getting to Whittier isn't easy. The only way in is by sea or through a 4-kilometer or 2.5-mile one-lane tunnel, the longest combined vehicle railroad tunnel in North America. Strangely enough, Whittier might have been built for survival, but the next town was built for chess, aliens, and an ex-president with a wild imagination. 15. Chess City, Kalmykia, Russia. Chess City was the brainchild of Kirsan Ilyumzhinov, former president of Kalmykia and longtime head of the International Chess Federation. Between $30 and $50 million was poured into the chess palace, Mediterranean-style villas, and massive chess sculptures. It even hosted the 1998 Chess Olympiad. And somehow Ilyumzhinov himself is even stranger than his creation. He claims he was abducted by aliens and that a psychic predicted his rise to power. As for where all that money came from, no one really knows. But if you ask Ilyumzhinov, it doesn't matter, because according to him, the aliens will be back someday to take the whole town away anyway. Now, we've seen towns built for chess, survival, and even secrecy. But what happens when a town is built just to be a near-perfect copy of another? 14. Hallstatt, China. Hallstatt, Austria is a picture-perfect lakeside village and a UNESCO World Heritage Site. But there's an identical version of the tiny town 5,500 miles away in China. The copy was built for $940 million by China Minmetals Corporation and features everything from Hallstatt's iconic church tower to its wooden houses. The only problem is that nobody told the real Hallstatt. When residents and the mayor found out their hometown had been cloned, some were flattered, others were furious. But controversy aside, the Chinese Hallstatt has become a huge tourist attraction, proving that when it comes to architecture, imitation really is the sincerest form of flattery. And speaking of small towns, the next one is about as small as it gets. 13. Monowi, USA. Monowi, Nebraska is unlike any other town in the US because it has just one resident. Elsie Eiler, now 88, is the mayor, clerk, treasurer, librarian, and bartender of this one-person town. Besides running Monowi Tavern, which attracts locals and travelers daily, she also pays the taxes that keep the town running by maintaining its 4 streetlights. Monowi used to have 150 residents, but over time the town emptied out. Today, Elsie runs the town for herself and for anyone who still visits. Life comes with a few guarantees: taxes, aging, and eventually death. Unless, of course, you live in this next place. 12. Longyearbyen, Norway. Longyearbyen isn't just the northernmost town on Earth, it also has some of the strangest rules. It's said to be illegal to die here, but it's not really that dramatic. Because of the extreme cold, bodies don't decompose properly. To avoid potential health risks, anyone seriously ill is sent to mainland Norway, and burials aren't allowed. So technically, no one has been buried here for decades. That's not the only odd rule. Cats are banned to protect local wildlife, and if you leave town, you're required to carry a gun. Not because of crime, but because there are more polar bears than people, and you don't want to end up on the menu. But they've got nothing on the wildlife lurking in the streets of this next town. 11. Marloth Park, South Africa. Marloth Park, South Africa sits right next to the Kruger National Park, home to lions, elephants, hippos, and crocodiles. And here's the crazy part. Residents aren't allowed to build fences around their homes. Nothing at all. The only barrier between them and the park is a tiny 4-foot fence, designed more to keep people out of the park than animals in. That means it's totally normal to see giraffes blocking the road, baboons raiding refrigerators, and even lions wandering the town. The locals even have a fun nickname for the people who dare to cycle after dark. Yep, they call them Meals on Wheels. No fences when you live between lions is one thing. This next place has no laws. 10. Slab City, USA. Slab City isn't a city at all. It's a small desert town where people live by their own rules. Or no rules at all. Built on the remains of an abandoned World War II Marine base, this off-grid community got its name from the concrete slabs left behind. In the winter, up to 4,000 people live here, from retirees and artists to those looking to escape society. But come summertime, only about 150 residents stick it out. There's no running water, no electricity unless you have solar panels, and no law enforcement presence. But at least the ground beneath your feet isn't disappearing into the sea. 9. Neft, off the coast of Baku, Azerbaijan. Neft looks like a post-apocalyptic oil rig, and somehow people still live there. Built in 1949 after the Soviets struck oil offshore, it became the world's first offshore drilling platform. But the Soviets didn't stop there. They then built apartments, schools, a cinema, and 200 kilometers of bridges to connect it all. At its height, over 5,000 people lived and worked here. However, today, parts of the city are sinking, and only around 2,000 workers remain. Yet, this half-submerged oil town is still in operation. Oh, and it holds a Guinness World Record, and even made a cameo in a James Bond movie. 8. Masuleh, Iran. From a city sinking into the sea to one built straight into the mountains, welcome to Masuleh, a village that ignores the rules of architecture. Masuleh has stood for over 1,000 years. With barely any flat land to build on, homes are stacked into the mountainside, where the roof of one building doubles as the front yard for the one above it. Its steep staircases and narrow alleys are so tight that cars are completely banned, making it one of the few fully pedestrian-only towns in the world. Yep, there's simply no space for cars. 7. The Villages, USA. A town built in the mountains is rare, but so is a place where retirees are fighting over women and sneaking around for black market Viagra. The Villages, Florida, is a retirement community bigger than Manhattan, home to over 100,000 people, and famous for its golf carts, gossip, and wild social scene. With a 10-to-1 female-to-male ratio, dating here is competitive. And when I say competitive, I mean it. Between bar fights, late-night hookups, and a reported surge in STDs rivaling Miami, the Villages might just be the wildest town in America, retired or not. But not every town is obsessed with nightlife. Some are just obsessed with the night sky. 6. Arizona Sky Village, USA. Arizona Sky Village is a 450-acre community designed for hardcore stargazers. Tucked away in southeastern Arizona near Portal, it's one of the darkest places in the country. There are no streetlights, no porch lights, and no glowing windows. Just homes with built-in observatories and blackout curtains. Even the Chiricahua Mountains help block out the unwanted light. With skies this clear, the Milky Way practically looks like it's in HD. So for the 21 households living here, every night is a front row seat to the universe. 5. Bengkala, Indonesia. Not all communities rely on spoken words. In Bengkala, a rare recessive gene called DFNB3 has caused 2.2% of the population to be deaf. That's 5 times the global average. But here, deafness isn't a disadvantage. The Kolok, as they're called, are fully integrated. Everyone learns Karakolok, the village's unique sign language, and deaf children attend school alongside hearing kids. Even the town's guards are Kolok, known for being incredibly strict, partly because they don't hear the screams of criminals they punish. Some say it's genetics, but according to local legend, a magical curse is still shaping the village today. 4. Sighișoara, Romania. If walls could talk, this town would have centuries of stories to tell, some of them drenched in blood. Sighișoara isn't just a medieval masterpiece, it's the birthplace of Vlad the Impaler. Yes, that Vlad, the guy who inspired Dracula. In fact, his childhood home is still there. But for a place with such a dark past, Sighișoara is actually incredibly beautiful and is one of the best preserved medieval towns in Europe. The UNESCO site is a maze of cobblestone alleys, colorful facades, and towering citadel walls that have barely changed over the centuries. While Sighișoara's past is steeped in blood, our next town is known for something far stranger. It's the capital of black magic. 3. Bahla, Oman. Despite Oman's strong Islamic traditions, Bahla has held on to its mystical reputation for centuries. And stories of witches casting spells, jinn lurking in the shadows, and magicians who can somehow travel the world without ever leaving the town are everywhere. Some even say Bahla Fort, one of Oman's oldest, was built overnight by a horde of spirits. So it's clear to see that Bahla's stories defy logic, but our next town defies gravity. 2. Zzyzx, Ghana. The floating village of Zzyzx was built on stilts over Lake Tadane and is home to about 500 people. It has everything you'd expect in a small town: a bar, a school, 2 churches, even a guest house. The school plays an especially important role. It has over 80 students packed into 4 classrooms, and education is a definite priority. But there's one tiny problem. They can't keep teachers. Why? Well, because most of the teachers can't swim. You see, in Ghana, swimming lessons aren't common, and in a village where the water is deep, dark, and rises fast during heavy rains, that's kind of a deal breaker. 1. Hum, Croatia. And coming in at number 1 today, I thought I'd show you the smallest town in the world. Hum is just 300 feet or 91.5 meters long and 100 feet or 30.5 meters wide. So it's probably more of a tiny medieval postcard than a town. And yet, it has its own mayor, a few dozen residents, and a history that goes back centuries. According to legend, Hum was created by giants who used leftover stones after building nearby villages to build the tiny town, which is why it's so small and unique. And if that wasn't adorable enough, the entire town is enclosed by medieval walls, making it the cutest fortified town in history. Tiny but mighty, Hum proves that size doesn't matter. That is, unless you're trying to fit more than 50 people into one town. And that's it for today. Now, let's see if you were paying attention. Which language, believed to have been spoken by Zzyzx, is still spoken by some residents of Maaloula, Syria today? Is it A, Hebrew, B, Aramaic, C, Latin, or D, Greek? Drop your answers in the comments below. And if you enjoyed today's list and want more, check out our related video, 25 travel scams to watch out for all over the world. Because traveling is exciting, but it's easy to fall for a scam. So before you pack your bags, give this video a watch. And if you're a regular visitor but haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell to help us grow the channel. It would really mean a lot to me. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you again next time.